Beware of fish sellers. It is a popular saying in some parts of Africa. Because not everything sold in the market is just for your belly. Sometimes your destiny is part of the price. This story of Mama Ayo explains everything. From as early as 6 o'clock every morning, even before the sun fully rose over the town of Or, a long queue would have already formed in front of a modest shop nestled in the heart of the main market. The queue was always orderly, despite the number of people, and stretched into the adjoining street, winding around kiosks and roadside sellers. The reason? Fish. But not just any fish, Mama Ayo's fish. A small boy pulled his mother's wrapper. Mama, are we late? The woman looked ahead and hissed, If I don't get that fish today, your father won't eat. A man behind them sighed. That fish makes rice taste like stew. I don't know how she does it. Another woman joined, whispering, Even my son that hates fish, he now licks the bone. The queue moved slowly. Mama Ayo's shop had not opened, but still they waited. Every morning it was like that. By 6 a.m., the line was already full. By 6:30, it was dancing into the next street. Yet no one complained, because they believed they were queuing for something special. Every corner of the town had tasted her fish, and everyone said the same thing. It's always fresh, soft like butter, shiny like river glass. Yet not one person had ever seen her shouting, Come and buy. She never used bell. She never begged. She never smiled too much. She just sat, opened her big iron cooler, and began to sell. She would weigh it, wrap it, collect money, nothing more. No matter how many people bought, she never ran out. People started saying, She is not ordinary. Maybe she has a freezer under the ground. Or her husband works in a fish company. But the truth was deeper. It was not in the fish. It was not in her smile. It was under the ground, and that ground would soon open secrets. But for now, the line kept growing. The birds in the sky were just beginning to sing. But down in the market, everyone already knew. A day without Mama Ayo's fish is a day your soup will cry. And that's why they waited, quietly, patiently, hungrily, because behind that shop door was something bigger than fish. And very soon, the whole town would find out. It was Monday. The sky was loud. Big trucks rolled into All Market, their tires groaning like angry drums. The engines coughed smoke into the air. Men in yellow hats jumped down with papers and measuring tapes. They shouted, This market will change. Old shop must go. The traders looked up from their stalls. Fear entered their bones. One woman packed her tomatoes fast. Another man folded his umbrellas and cried, Where will I go now? A pepper seller knelt beside her basket. Please, government people, I just paid rent last week. But the men in yellow did not listen. They waved their papers and pointed at buildings. One after the other, stalls were broken. Wood cracked. Nails flew. Dust rose like smoke after war. The market cried, but not Mama Ayo. She stood in front of her small shop. Her feet were firm, her eyes hard, her hands on her waist. One of the workers came to her. Madam, he said, pack your things. We don't want problem. She looked at him, quiet. Then she said slowly, You cannot touch this shop. The man blinked. Madam, it's just a fish shop. Another one added, You're not the only one here. All of us are affected. But Mama Ayo did not move. Her lips were dry, her voice low. You don't understand. The market people began to gather. A young boy whispered, Why is she talking like that? An old woman hissed, She thinks she's special. But Mama Ayo didn't hear them. Or maybe she did, but she didn't care. Her eyes were fixed on the ground, on something beneath her shop. One of the officers stepped forward again. We have orders. Move or we will call police. She didn't answer. Then slowly, her legs began to shake, her hands too. She held the doorpost, but she didn't let them pass. Because under that shop, in the earth where ants walk and roots grow, was something. Something no other eye must see. But the men in yellow didn't know. They only saw wood and nails. So they kept coming closer. And Mama Ayo's voice, once bold, began to fade. But she stood there still, like a soldier without a gun, waiting for the storm to begin. You see, before the fish, before the queue, before anyone knew her as Mama Ayo the fish seller, her name was Ayobami. She wore flat shoes and tied her scarf with pins. Her bag always smelled of chalk and paper. She was a teacher, not just any teacher, the best one. She taught at St. James Primary School in Class 3B. Her chalkboard was always clean. Her songs made multiplication fun. She would sing, and the children would shout, "Auntie, again!" Ayobami loved them, and they loved her back. She bought biscuits with her own money. She marked homework even when her eyes were tired. She stayed after school to help children who were slow. But one day, one quiet Thursday, trouble came wearing lip gloss and pink ribbons. Her name was Teni. She was the daughter of Chief Adigboro, a big man in politics, a man whose voice made people bow. Teni sat in the second row. Her bag was shiny. Her shoes made noise when she walked. That day, Ayobami gave a class test. Everyone bent their heads, wrote fast, but not Teni. She looked left. She looked right. Then she pulled out a small paper from under her sleeve. Ayobami saw her. She walked over, quiet, calm. She took the paper, tore it. Then she said loud and clear, "You will get 0, and you will rewrite this test next week, alone." Tenny gasped. The class froze. Someone whispered, "Her father will not like this." Ayobami stood firm. "This class has rules. Cheating is not allowed." Tenny's eyes filled with tears. "I will tell my daddy," she muttered. Ayobami didn't flinch. She just said, "Tell him." That evening, a black car with dark windows stopped outside the school. The tires were quiet, but the fear it carried was loud. The headmistress ran out first. Teachers followed behind her like confused chickens. Then the door opened, and Chief Adegboro stepped out. Big stomach, bigger voice, and 2 phones in one hand. "Where is the teacher that embarrassed my daughter?" he barked. Everyone pointed. Ayobami stepped forward, her hands shaking slightly. "I'm the one, sir," she said. He looked her up and down like old yam. "You will lose your job," he said coldly. "You think you can shame my daughter? You think you are above her?" Ayobami replied, her voice small but clear. "She cheated, and I corrected her. That's my job." Chief Adegboro laughed, a short, sharp laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Not anymore," he said, and just like that, her days as a teacher ended. The chalkboard was wiped clean. The song stopped, and Ayobami walked home that day, carrying her lesson notes like a sack of stones. She didn't know it yet, but the road ahead would be long. "She embarrassed my daughter!" That was what Chief Adegboro shouted at the school board. His voice was thunder, his words lightning. The teachers bowed their heads. The headmistress wiped her forehead with a white handkerchief. No one stood for Ayobami. Not one. They fired her. No warning. No thank you. No goodbye. Ayobami stood there with tears in her eyes. I didn't do anything wrong, she whispered. But the headmistress shook her head. Your name is now blacklisted. You won't teach in this local government again. Ayobami went home with her lesson notes and her red pen. She locked the door. She didn't cook. She didn't talk. She just cried. Day after day, she sat by the window, watching children walk to school. Her chest hurt each time she heard their laughter. Her husband, Tunde, a soft-spoken tailor with kind eyes, sat beside her one evening. He took her hand, rubbed it slowly. My wife, he said gently, the door to the classroom is closed, but the door to the kitchen is still open. She looked at him. What do you mean? You love cooking, he said. Everybody knows that. Try it. People must eat. Ayobami smiled a little. So she tried. She bought a second-hand cooler from Mama Rafiat, the woman down the street. The handle was shaky. The lid had dents, but it could hold food. She boiled rice, fried plantain, cooked soft beans with red oil and onions. She woke early, sweated in the kitchen, washed pots till her fingers wrinkled. Then she put on her scarf, tied the cooler on a wheelbarrow, and pushed it to the market gate. Her feet were tired, but her hope was fresh. She stood there from morning till noon. She called out, hot jollof rice, sweet beans, come and buy. But nobody came. A woman sniffed the air and said, your food has no smell. A man passed and waved his hand. Looks watery. A girl stopped, dipped her finger, tasted it, then spat on the floor. No salt. Ayobami's eyes burned. She stayed until evening. Then she pushed the full cooler back home. Tunde met her at the door. He helped her inside. She said nothing. The next day she tried again. This time she added more pepper. Still, nobody bought. People walked past her like she was a ghost with a pot. They bought from others. Even the woman who sold dry rice with burnt bottom had customers. But not Ayobami. Days turned into weeks. The sun roasted her skin. The insults roasted her spirit. She stopped calling out. She just stood by the gate, quiet, hoping. But nobody came. Because in our market, food was more than food. It was who you were. And Ayobami, she was now a fallen teacher with a rusty cooler and no customers. But something was coming. Something that would change the story. And it began with hunger. Not hers, but someone else's. That evening, the road was quiet. The sky had started to cry soft tears. Ayobami pushed her cooler with both hands. The wheel creaked like an old man's knee. Her legs were weak. Her blouse was soaked with sweat. Her heart felt like a pot with nothing inside. The market had laughed at her again. The food stayed untouched, just like yesterday and the day before. She turned into a quiet street. She just wanted to reach home and lie down. Then she saw them. Under a big mango tree sat an old woman. Her wrapper was torn. Her eyes were tired, but kind. Beside her was a little boy, barefoot, dusty, his stomach flat like paper. The woman raised her hand slowly. Please, my daughter, she said. Her voice was dry like Hamatan wind. We haven't eaten anything today. Do you have a little to share? Ayobami stopped. Her fingers tightened on the cooler handle. She looked at the old woman, then at the small boy, who didn't even speak. He just looked at her with eyes like dry wells. She opened the cooler. Steam escaped. The smell of beans and pepper filled the air. She didn't take a plate. She didn't scoop a portion. She pushed the whole cooler toward them and said, Take all of it. I can't carry it home again. The woman's eyes widened. All? Ayobami nodded. All. She bent down, untied the cooler, left the wheelbarrow, and turned to walk away. But the old woman stood up, slowly, like a leaf rising from wind. She reached for Ayobami's hand. Her fingers were cold, but her touch was warm. You have a good heart, she said. Ayobami smiled, but only with her lips. I don't need anything. Just eat. Let the boy eat. But the woman didn't let go of her hand. She looked deep into her eyes and said, When you are ready, come back to this tree. Ayobami frowned a little. What do you mean? The woman just smiled. Her teeth were old and yellow, but her smile was gold. She nodded once, then sat back down beside the boy. Ayobami stood for a second. The wind blew past her scarf. Then she turned and walked away, without her cooler, without her food, and without her hope. But behind her, the old woman watched, and the small boy licked beans from his fingers, smiling like he had tasted heaven. And from that day on, the mango tree waited. 2 weeks crawled by like an old tortoise. Ayobami didn't forget the woman under the tree. She tried to, but she couldn't. The words, when you are ready, kept echoing in her mind like a drum in an empty hall. Then, one morning, before the cock even crowed, she tied her scarf, stepped out of the house, and walked. No food in her stomach, no water on her lips. Only one thing moved her legs, hope. She reached the mango tree, and there she was, the old woman, sitting like she had never left. But this time, she was holding a calabash. She didn't speak. She just stood, turned her back, and began walking. Ayobami followed without a word. They walked through quiet streets, through small bush paths, to wet sand and sleepy grass, until they reached the edge of the river. A big tree stood by the water. Its roots sat deep like secrets. Its branches danced without wind. The old woman knelt down. She placed the calabash on the ground. Then she spoke, but not in English, not in any tongue Ayobami knew. The words sounded like whistles and water mixed together. The river shivered. The water moved. Then slowly, from the middle of the river, a woman began to rise. Her skin was as dark as night rain. Her eyes shone like stars inside a cave. Her hair floated behind her like seaweed in a dream. Her feet didn't touch the ground. She stood above the river. Then her voice came, soft, deep, and sharp like a blade inside a song. What do you want? Ayobami's lips trembled. Her eyes were wide. Her knees bent on their own. She fell to the ground and whispered, I want to feed my family. That's all. I just want people to buy my food. I want to take care of my husband. I want to stop crying every night. The river spirit looked at her. Then she nodded. Then listen well. The wind grew quiet. Even the birds stopped singing. Ayobami's heart beat like a drum in her chest. The spirit's eyes glowed. Her voice became slower. If you are ready to sell fish, the whole town will come to you. But there is a price. Ayobami opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She just nodded. Good, said the spirit. Then she raised her hand, and a black box rose from the river, small, square, and cold. The spirit floated closer. Every morning by 4 a.m., come to this tree. A sack of fish will be waiting. Take it. Sell it. You will not shout. You will not beg. They will come. Ayobami's lips parted. Her hands trembled. Thank you. But the spirit's face grew serious. Bury this box under your shop, the spirit said, deep where the sun cannot see it. As long as it stays hidden, your blessing will flow. You will never lack. The town will eat from your hands. Ayobami reached out and took the box. It was warm. Then the spirit said something that made the ground feel cold. But the day this box sees light, the very moment the sun touches it, all your children will die, one by one, before your eyes. Ayobami's heart froze. The spirit leaned in. If you ever speak of this to anyone, even a whisper, your breath will stop, your tongue will freeze, your body will fall, you'll die. The wind blew again. The water swallowed the spirit. The old woman stood up. She turned to Ayobami. Go now and never forget. Ayobami looked at the box in her hands. She did not cry. She just nodded and walked away. That was the day she left as Ayobami and returned as Mama Ayo. Before the cock crowed, before the stars went to sleep, Ayobami dug a hole. Behind a new shop, small, quiet, sitting between two old stalls. She held the black box in both hands. It was still warm. She looked at the sky. No light yet, only darkness. She dropped the box inside the hole, covered it with sand, packed bricks on top, then stood up and wiped her hands. She didn't speak. She didn't pray. She just whispered, "Let this work." And it did. The next morning, by 4 a.m., she went back to the big tree by the river. The air was cold. The sky was still black. But just like the spirit said, a sack of fish waited beneath the tree. Big fish, fat, fresh, glistening like they were caught seconds ago. She dragged the sack to a shop, opened the cooler, packed them inside, then waited. She didn't shout. She didn't ring bell. By 6 a.m., one woman walked past, sniffed the air, and turned back. Are you selling fish? She asked. Ayobami nodded. The woman bought two. Then another person came. Then another. By 7 a.m., 5 people stood outside her shop. By 7:30, the queue touched the next stall. By the next week, the line was longer than the sugar man's own. People whispered, "That new fish seller, her fish is sweet. She never runs out. Even her tilapia smells like chicken." By the second week, the whole market knew her name, not as Ayobami anymore. Now, they called her Mama Ayo. Men waved at her. Women greeted her with smiles. Even the traders who once ignored her now gave her space. She wore new wrappers, soft ones that danced when she walked. Her husband, Tunde, bought a brand new sewing machine with the money she brought home. Their house smelled of pepper soup and laughter. The days of hunger were gone. The days of shame had packed and left. But even in the middle of joy, even when people clapped for her and called her Blessed Woman, Mama Ayo never forgot. Each time she swept her shop in the morning, she would pause at one spot, the exact place where the black box slept. She wouldn't stand too long. She wouldn't bend. She would just sweep gently and move on. But in her heart, she still heard the spirit's voice. If this box sees the sun. And each time her children laughed or ran to hug her, she held them tighter than normal. Because no matter how sweet the fish smelled, the price was waiting beneath the ground, silent, watching. Back in the market, the murmuring crowd still surrounded her shop. People watched as Mama Ayo sat there, silent and withdrawn, her eyes distant. The contractors grew impatient. "Madam, I'm sorry, but we have instructions. Either you move or we'll have to call the police." Still, she didn't move. Minutes later, 2 officers arrived and approached her. They tried to lead her aside gently. She resisted at first, but when one of them mentioned handcuffs, She went quietly. She sat under a nearby tree, visibly trembling. The machine moved forward. With one strike, the walls cracked. Another strike, the roof collapsed. Dust rose high, covering the crowd like fog. People coughed, shielding their faces. Then it happened. The foundation broke apart. The earth groaned. From beneath the floor, half buried in soil, something black and square pushed itself up. A box? A child at the front pointed, his small voice cutting through the noise. Look, what is that? Heads turned, eyes widened. Some stepped closer, but before anyone could answer, three sharp screams tore through the air, piercing, loud, heart stopping. From three different corners of the market, her children fell. One by the yam stalls, one near the pepper sellers, one just by the gate. They convulsed, twisting, their mouths open in silent cries. Their bodies shook for a breath, then stilled. Two boys, one girl, no warning, no pain. They just collapsed, like cloth pulled off a line by strong wind. People ran. Water was fetched. Shoes were removed. Mouths were opened wide, shouting different names. Samuel! Debo! Ronke! But none of them woke. Their eyes stared blank. Their mouths stayed closed. Their chests did not rise. And strangely, they all looked alike. Same nose, same skin, same lips, and everyone knew they looked like Mama Ayo. One woman covered her mouth. Wait, those are her children. Another shouted, Somebody call her. Mama Ayo, come, your children. The officers turned. The workers paused. Even the bulldozer stopped moving. She had heard it already. Mama Ayo ran, faster than a mother at the sound of danger, faster than the wind that shakes cassava leaves. When she saw them, her legs gave up. She fell beside them, held their hands, shook their shoulders. Wake up, please. Wake up, my children. She pressed her face on their chests. Nothing, no heartbeat, no warmth. Her voice rose, louder than thunder, sharper than grief. Somebody help me, please. People stood far, watching, frozen. No one moved, not even the ones who used to call her blessed. Mama Ayo held her first son, rocked him like a baby. She turned to her daughter, touched her cheeks, then hugged the last boy and whispered, I kept the secret. I never told, but they didn't move because the box had seen the sun and the spirit had kept her promise. The price had been collected. All three, at once, without mercy. The market gathered around, voices rising. What happened? Someone shouted. Why did they fall? Another asked. Tears ran like rivers down her face. She pressed her hands on her children's still bodies, shaking them, begging them to wake. But they did not move. Her lips trembled. Her body shook. Then, as if the weight was too heavy to carry, she began to speak. Her voice was low, cracked with sorrow. She told them everything. The old woman by the tree, the river spirit, the sack of fish, the black box buried under her stall. The crowd listened in silence, the eyes wide, the mouths open. Some gasped, some crossed themselves, some stepped back in fear. Then one bold voice rose from the crowd. What is the name of this spirit? Mama Ayo lifted her head slowly. She opened her mouth to answer, but no sound came. Her eyes widened. Her hands flew to her throat. She gasped once, twice. Her body jerked, stiff and sudden. Then, with one last shudder, she fell lifeless beside her children. A scream tore through the market, followed by silence that pressed down like a heavy blanket. No one moved. The market froze. Dust still hung in the air, and fear spread like fire in dry grass. Some traders whispered, "Cover the box." Others cried, "Carry it away." But not a single hand touched it. Everyone stood back, afraid. By evening, government officials arrived. They sealed the place, locked it down. No one was allowed near Mama Ayo's broken stall again. The next day, the town buried her and her children in the cemetery. The earth swallowed them side by side. A priest raised his hands and prayed over their graves. His voice was firm, his words carried like thunder. Be careful what you envy, be careful what you eat, beware of sellers who never run out. From that day, Oa carried the story like a scar. Whenever a new shop became too popular, whenever buyers rushed with unusual hunger, a whisper would rise in the crowd. Check under their floor. Make sure there is no box. And so the saying lived on, passed from mouth to mouth, from mother to child. Beware of fish sellers. Not everything you buy is for your belly. Sometimes your destiny is part of the price. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video, comment what you learned from the tale, share with friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more African folk tales just like this one. Thank you.